So with that, Ken, I'll let you take it away.
All right, appreciate it. Appreciate everybody joining us today, and hopefully this will be informative. I'm not sure what the mix of attendees is, um, but uh, but I'm sure that everybody here has some connection with not only industry but the struggles that providers are facing, and we're hoping that the next gen platform is actually going to be a huge um, change, it fundamentally change the way services are provided. It will provide an additional, not only additional revenue stream, but hopefully a relief from the pressures that are being felt by providers that can't find enough staff to support the individuals. I was talking to a provider out of, well, I won't mention the state, but one of the states that they had over 300 positions that they're currently trying to fill, and it's just a revolving door, and it's a huge headache. And if we can by utilizing our platform, if we can help alleviate some of that, I think it'd be fantastic. So just real quick, I'm not going to go into explaining what remote supports is. I know Disability Cocoon has several places or several resources available that you can go back, and if you're not familiar with remote supports, you can go back and look at it. But just as a brief description of what remote supports is I look at it as staff at a distance. So it's still a staffing support, it's still a human support, but that support is provided at a distance as opposed to within the home. um, so one of the things I want to explain, just as I explain some history, is in reality, I wouldn't be here today had it not been for remote supports. And the reason for that is I've worked with a couple different companies that provide remote supports as a vendor, and so I've been through the struggles of starting up and maintaining and trying to grow this particular business model, and there are a lot of struggles that come along with it. But one of the huge benefits comes along with it are things like this additional revenue stream. You increase the independence of the individuals we're serving, and really, because the reason that I'm here today is because the latter of those things is at first I recognized, and it was a fluke how I got into this. I wasn't from the industry, but I got into remote supports, and I recognize that there's something to this. This is something that is really going to be something huge. But then as time went on, I started recognizing the benefits to the people we were serving, and I absolutely fell in love with it. And I thought to myself, how can we take this service and make it available to more people? Because there's a limited number of providers that do this kind of thing. And well, hang on here. I'm not advancing. There we go. Um, Limited number of providers that are doing this type of service. So how do we take this and make it more mainstream? And so that's by and large where the motivation behind next gen came from, is taking this service model, remote supports, and how do we make it available to the local provider. um so because one of the problems that come along with being that remote support vendor, if you will, is you're trying to build something in a space that's where you're just kind of doing it all by yourself. You're trying to figure it out all alone. Nobody wants to share. Other vendors don't want to share their secrets with you, so that you can learn from each other. There's just not a whole lot of knowledge because it is a fairly new service model within our industry, and there's nothing out there, or had not been anything out there, that was designed for this space. Providers like the companies that I worked for, one had taken technology that was designed for other markets and tried to make it fit within this. So going it yourself, figuring it out on your own, is a really heavy lift. Um, in so the one platform I mentioned, two different companies. One of the platforms was built on a system that was designed for an unrelated industry, and so it's kind of like putting a square peg in a round hole constantly. We were always trying to make things do something that they weren't designed to do. And then lo and behold, you get something figured out. And because of changes in the industry that system was designed for, changes happen then within that industry, and it just upset everything because you have no control over it, because you're one tiny customer that's using it in a very abnormal way for that industry. You're using their tool in a way it wasn't designed, so they're not going to adjust things or make things work according to what your needs are. And so it created a lot of headaches in trying to figure it out. And again, there's nobody else as a sounding board to help you figure that out. You're just floating around by yourself. The other way of doing this is kind of designing something from the ground up, and which is a good strategy, because now you can design it for the purposes that you need, and you don't have to worry about somebody making changes in an unrelated industry like I experienced there. The downside of that is now you have something that you've built that is extremely expensive to maintain, and it's extremely expensive to design new features into, because again, you you find yourself in with a sense of doing everything by yourself, because there's no other expertise to lean on. And that's really where next gen comes in. Is we design this so that it would be something that the local provider can partner with us and learn from us and learn from our experiences how to do this service. Um, and so we've addressed all those challenges that I mentioned. You know, we reduce the cost of getting started, and the complexity of it. You don't have to walk through the minefield by yourself. You can walk behind somebody that's already been there. We provide rapid onboarding and startup assistance to get you started, to set up the workstation or the monitoring center, set up your initial pilot sites, get those all set up, ready to go, test them out, make sure everything's working, train your people on how to do that and how to set those things up, and how to utilize them, and then help you basically not necessarily turn over the keys overnight, but bring you to the point where you can operate independently, but we're still there as a support piece. Our customers experience an extremely rapid return on investment from this platform, because the pricing structure is designed in such a way so that both large and small providers can adopt this type of technology and solution. um, and the platform is designed specifically for the IDD community. For remote supports for this community. It's designed for that, so you don't have to worry about other industries' needs and demands making shifts within the platform and making changes that don't work for your industry. Um, our customers don't have to incur the high costs of trial and error. You put something in place. I remember one time I had a device that we had about 75 of these devices out in the industry, and then there was something that happened that caused catastrophic failure across all that, and we had to go replace all that. We had to find a replacement, and then we had to replace all those things. And it's just a huge headache to try and figure out how to do those things. And then you once you get things started and you grow to a certain point, you become lost in the weeds of trying to maintain things, and it makes it very difficult and very expensive to develop new features. So you kind of get set in what you've already got. And so that's something else that we bring to the table, is you don't experience that high cost of feature development, or the high cost of maintaining developer talent and things like that. So we created this platform, and what we provide is assistance with the setting up the new business line, training you, policies and procedures, and all of the individuals that you're going to positions you're going to need to hire for all those little pieces. We help our customers figure out how to do that, what that talent looks like, why they need that talent, and when they're going to need that talent. Assistance uh, with the training piece of it, with the remote support center, as I mentioned earlier, setting up that remote support center, setting up those initial pilot sites, as well as future development and support of the platform. And that way, our providers, our customers, our provider partners are able to focus on the business line, and they don't have to get caught in the weeds of trying to figure out all the other pieces of the technology. Um, so what this graph here shows us is uh, just a general representation of what it's going to look like. You have a support center, and within that support center, we're providing the consulting, the setup, software, hardware, the features for the administrators to use, the policies and procedure assistance, the redundancies within that support center. That all communicates with our cloud, and then in addition communicates with a base unit that's in the person's home, and that's going to include that's going to include the the gateways, the cameras, the sensors, and in installation training and things like that. Hang on here, trying to get Windows so I could read stuff. Sorry. All right, so here I'm gonna switch screens here real quick, and I'm gonna do a quick demo of what this looks like. Just give me a minute. And where did my share option go? Man, it's too many windows. All right, here we go. I don't think that's right.
Yeah, we've got yeah.
I don't know why it's not giving me that option, so I'm trying to fool it into give me the right option. Here it is. There we go. Is that it?
Yep, we've got it. And real quick before you jump into that,
Yep.
when you were talking about the home hardware,
Yep.
you had mentioned a base unit, and somebody
Yep.
was kind of asking what the base unit is.
Okay, it without getting into the weeds, it basically is it's a communication piece. It's the kind of the brains of the system that communicates with the sensors that are within the home, and it sends that information into the cloud, and then again the cloud communicates with the workstations. All right, so you can see all the screens okay?
Yeah, it looks great.
All right. So what we have here is a representation, a demo representation of what our platform functions like. This is not an exact replica, but it's pretty darn close to what actually happens within the system. So if we look at this first, if we look at each of these boxes or rectangles, if you will, as 4 different monitors, we have monitor 1, 2, 3, and 4. So you'd have a caregiver sitting here in front of these 4 screens, and this is what provides them the information in order to recognize what's going on, to triage the events, and move on to the next one, document them and everything. And so this first screen is kind of like what we would call a site grid. It represents each of the sites. So if I want to find out what's going on or get information on this site here, I can click on it, and then my information about that site, or if I wanted to communicate with that site, it automatically queues up that information in these other 2 screens, makes it ready to go. So so I can do that for each of these. I can click on those and select for the different ones. So what happens is, one of the big, and if you've never been in a remote support center, it's kind of hard to understand how impactful this is. But imagine, if you will, you've got alerts that come in, and then somewhere you have a bunch of monitor screens with a whole bunch of video images coming in from multiple locations, and it gets kind of hard to figure out who is who, which home is home, and so forth. Or maybe the documentation is handled on paper, or it's handled in a different piece of software or something like that. So what we want to do is make sure that everything is here, that everything is static in the sense that I don't have a bunch of windows that I have to dig through like I was doing when I was trying to get this screen to say or to share. I had to go move through a bunch of windows and bury a bunch of stuff so I could find it. We wanted to eliminate all that kind of confusion and make sure that this site grid is always in the same place. This screen is always in the same place to make it very simple for people to jump around. And so what would happen is let's say an event occurs. So here we see in this screen right here in the site grid one, we have this flashing green. But if you notice, we also had in these others, it automatically queues up this site. Okay. Yeah, that looks better. Huh. Yeah. So we see under alert type, we have kitchen, and then we have a protocol, and it basically says, hey, no excessive snacking after 10 p.m. Maybe there's a health issue there that we want to redirect for that kind of thing. And you also notice it says Adam. So this is if this is related to Adam. So if we see in the video playback, what we have is two different video images above there. We have a video playback, which is going to be a historical view 10 seconds before the sensor triggered and 10 seconds after. That is so that we know what happened that triggered the event. The other video to the right there is what's currently happening. So what works really nice is now we don't miss anything. We don't have to worry about what actually happened at the time because all we have is a live feed. We actually see what the event coming up. So maybe it's Matt that we see that walks up there and and so we could click on Matt and we know that he doesn't have the same restrictions. Well, I shouldn't use the term restrictions, but the same concerns as Adam does. So maybe there's nothing we really need to do, and we can just document that it was Matt. Well, let's say that it's Adam. So when we see that Adam has gotten into the ding dong cabinet and he's pulling out a whole box of them, so we want to call Adam and we want to help redirect him to make a better choice. So go ahead and click call location. And now it's automatically going to queue up and call the location where Adam is at. And any second now, Adam is going to pop up here. Maybe not. Did you double click it? Just click it once. There we go. There's Adam.
My computer's a
So-
little slow, sorry.
Yeah, so look at there. Adam actually was not getting into the ding dongs. He's actually getting some zucchini or cucumbers or something like that out, and he's slicing them up. Hey, Adam, that's a fantastic job. Good choices. Be careful with that sharp knife. I'm not sure who let you have that. And then we can end the call and we can document what happened. So we end the call, we come over to screen 4, and we have some, again, we have the alert type, the time it happened. We have some quick action selections that we could do where we could shorten the amount of time that it takes for a staff person to document. And then we could just type in here, hey, Adam did a great job of eating vegetables in the middle of the night. And then we could submit it. And then as soon as we hit submit, it clears everything off. And so now it's going to be ready to queue up the next event to happen. So Dustin, if you can hit the first 2 locations. So now we got another event happen, and then let's go ahead and do the first one. So so the first one that came in is the one we're going to deal with. So we have Jane Doe, we have no visitors is the protocol. So we want to make sure that nobody's coming in and taking advantage of her or anything like that. And so again, we have the video playback, which is going to show us what happened at the time that the door opened. So maybe we see Jane walking up to the door. She opens the door, she looks outside, and she closes the door. It's really a non-event. There's no reason to interfere in Jane's life if that's all that happened. Now, if she does that like 5 times in 5 minutes, maybe we need to call and see if everything's okay. But otherwise it's just a non-event. Or maybe we see that Jane opens the door and she invites somebody into the house, and so we would need to call the location in a situation like that and find out who is there and maybe politely ask them to leave if they shouldn't be there, or whatever the protocol happens to be. So what I want to show is what happens when we actually finish this Okay, yeah, you're doing the call. Yeah, go ahead and end the call, and let's document this, because what I want to show you what happens is as soon as we document this, and hit submit, it automatically queues up the next event. So our caregivers don't have to go looking for what's next. It is going to queue up. And one of the pieces we want to develop within this is a protocol or a priority level, so that will queue up the next most important thing. That's why we've got these color codes on here, is that it'll queue up the most important things to come up or that need to be dealt with. So if you could go ahead and give us a demonstration of what happens in case of an emergency. So go ahead and hit yeah, there you go. Go ahead and clear that one out, and let's do 1000 Green Lane first. Go ahead and yeah, and now do Logan Drive. Okay, so we see here that we're dealing with Jane Doe at Green Lane, but we have a red emergency event coming up. So our options here are either we can tell Jane that, hey, I gotta go, or we just let it time out. It switches automatically to the one that has the high priority, emergency priority. We deal with that situation. It's a non-event. We call, there's nothing really going on. There's nothing of concern. So we can end the call. We can submit this, the document that it was a non-event. And so we can submit it. And now it's automatically going to queue back to Jane Doe. So we didn't lose our place. And now the lower priority level item now can be triaged and worked on. Okay. Dustin, I miss anything to show on this?
I don't think so. No, that was great.
All right. So let me move things around here again, and I'll share my screen one more time.
We actually had a couple of more questions. You want me to hold those until the end, or you want them now?
Well, I'm almost done. So let me just
Okay.
hit this real quick. I am done. There we go. How about that? I told you I was trying to get it done in a hurry, and I failed miserably at getting it done as quick. So what were the questions?
We have a question that is that a live camera feed of the dining room? So I'm guessing on screen 2, there were 2 different camera feeds.
Yeah. So one is live, the one that was on the right-hand side, that would be a live camera feed. And the other one is a historical playback, which is 10 seconds prior to the event trigger and 10 seconds after the event trigger. The reason you want to do that is, imagine you're monitoring, say, 30 homes at the same time. And an event occurs, and before you can get to that particular home, it's not an emergency one. That's why we built that emergency hierarchy into this. It's not an emergency thing, but it still is something that we have some concerns that we need to deal with. We want to know what happened at the time, because it would be easy if you remember the one where we were seeing the video of the door, the image of the door. Well, if we didn't have the historical playback, somebody could walk up, open the door, leave the house, invite somebody into the house, whatever, go off camera somewhere else, and we never know what happened. All we have is an alert that tells us that the door opened, but by the time we get to the live feed, all we see is a door closed, and we have no idea what actually transpired. And so the historical playback gives us that piece so that we know what actually happened, and then we can triage the event accurately.
And then we had a question about the quick actions, and I'll share my screen again here.
So the quick actions, those are
Can they
the demo.
Except the question was, can they be edited?
Yeah,
so,
I see it. I see the question.
All right.
Yeah. So the can they be edited? These here are not the ones we landed on. So what we would want to do is, anything can be adjusted, if you will. But the ones that we actually landed on, I can't think of them off the top of my head, but there's I believe 5 different quick action things that you can click on. They really cover a broad spectrum, and then you have the resolution box there that you can fill in the details. So the purpose is not, hey, I just want to click on one of these links and leave it alone, say no action needed, and because that really isn't descriptive enough. But the idea is I can click on no action needed, and then the resolution I can type because it was John, not Jane, that opened the door, or whatever. Somebody who the protocol is not designed for. And so I would I don't know that there would be a need to edit, but I feel certain that if we had enough demand for certain changes, that's again one of the
Oh,
benefits to this is the number of times I would go to a manufacturer and all that and be like, hey, is there any way that you can tweak this one little tiny thing, this because this is why I need it to work this way? And they're like, no, our industry standard is this. And so there was no interest, and I was one person with 150, 200 customer sites that wanted to change, and they were serving tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of sites. And so we really had, when you go that route, you really have no leverage to make any changes, whereas with a platform like ours, we're actually open to making adjustments to things that fit our customers needs. And there's a variety of ways we can go about doing that.
yeah, that's actually, you can almost think of it as a crowdsourced feature
Yeah.
development where
Yeah.
we have, dozens or hundreds of providers around the US using this platform, all providing suggestions like, hey, maybe we should be able to customize the quick action buttons
Yeah.
to that individual's, care plan.
Hmm.
And then once we develop that, then that is pushed out to everyone. So,
Yeah.
um, Ken, what about uh we have a couple questions about cameras. Are cameras always on? And then the second one is, are video clips archived and how long?
Yeah. So I'll try to answer both questions at once. So yes and no. Okay, they are live in the sense that they are on, but they aren't broadcasting. So if you can kind of look at it as, if a camera is looking at something, the data is coming, and then it's just being after that, at the historical event trigger. So let's say that after 20 seconds after an event, or 20 seconds after a specific point in time occurs, that data is just being dumped. Okay. The reason it's like 20 seconds after is because we have that historical playback. So if an event happens, we want to be able to capture what happened 10 seconds prior and hold that, and then the 10 seconds after that for that historical replay. But ultimately, that data is dumped unless it leads to an some type of a reportable event. So anything that's recorded that's showing up on our screens here is going to be held for, I think currently we're looking at like a 2 week, 14-day period. And the reason for that is we should know within 14 days whether there's some type of an event that needs to be reported at IR, MUI, or what, depending on the state you're in, what it's called, where that has to be reported. And then that information then is pulled and stored for 7 years. Otherwise, after the 14-day threshold, it's dumped as well, unless there's documentation attached to it.
And to add another layer to that, obviously the remote support regulations are going to vary state to
Yeah.
state. So what we have to be able to do is to adjust the recording length
Hmm.
based on your state's, remote support
Yeah.
regulations.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't want to hold everything indefinitely because it becomes extremely expensive. The more data that you hold. And so we want to make sure that we hold it for a reasonable period of time for look back. But ultimately, if it doesn't need to be held, then there's no sense in our customers and us having to pay the cost of storing that.
And then Ken, probably the last question, and if anybody else has any last minute questions, please throw them in. Ken, you didn't do a very good job getting this out early. I'm just teasing you.
It's your
What is
fault.
how is NextGen charging for services, by location, by person?
So it's kind of hard to answer that question specifically, but typically it's going to be by location. by site. But that's something that it can depend upon where we're at in the country. It could be depend on the actual customer and what type of structure they have, because there's nothing where we're charging per person. It's always a per site component, but there's also a some other components that are involved that I'd be happy to discuss with any provider that's interested.
Yeah, we've made put the pricing structure in such a way that if a provider starts with NextGen and has 8 homes in the first year, 8 homes that they're providing road supports to, they'll break even in month 2 or 3. Cash flow break even in month 2, total break even in month 3.
Yeah. I see Tammy has a question here. Can you have multiple persons doing the monitoring? So I'm assuming you're talking about the number of remote caregivers, and yes, you can definitely have multiples, and that would be the goal that we would want for all of our customers, to grow to the point where they have 2, 3, 4, 5, 10 remote caregivers that are providing support for hundreds of sites.
Wonderful. Thanks, Ken. Well, I don't see any other questions in the chat. I hope that this was a good overview. Thank you, Ken, for doing this.
Absolutely. Sorry, the one thing didn't work. I'll have to talk to our dev team and ask them what the heck's going on with my demo.
Yeah. Well, as you guys can all tell, I've been working with Ken for many years and like to kind of tease him and poke fun at him. So again, tech huddles are usually laid back. So Ken, thank you very much for jumping on and showing us NextGen. Everybody else, thank you for joining us. If you would like, Ken, if you want to throw up your contact information, that'd be great. Or you can just reach out to me at dustin@disabilitycocoon.com. Please check the website for next week's tech huddle. Actually, next week we will not be holding a tech huddle, but the week after that, our tech huddle will be Life Sherpa, which is a pretty cool kind of task prompting, routine prompting platform that's just been developed. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll hopefully see you here in a couple of weeks.
All right.
Thanks, Ken.